Okay, there's quite a bit of rain and there's some cats here, so maybe I have to read this. But the point is, all these things that I'm posting out, almost known to viewers, is based on a lot of preparation, a lot of thinking, a lot of struggling with complex problems. I'm going to repeat it again and again, and it's all coming together now. I've had this rebel nomad moniker and branding on myself that I'm a bit reluctant about getting out there because I don't want to be perceived as a rebel in the wrong setting, in the wrong country and culture. Let's go back a few years. Let's go back to the beginning of social media that actually manipulates reality itself. I have a couple of stories. In 2009, 8-9, I wanted to get into this digitalization because I wanted customers, I wanted to build something. I was in the open source space, mixed with media. Then I started using meetup.com, and that was a revolution because people had a way of meeting up around the subject, different topics. So I used that for a while. I was intensively hosting meetups and building networks, and I was fusing this. Later on, I was fusing it with an underground network, which is international, global, which is called the BNI Business Network. I was trying to drive this hybrid thing. If you have an underground network, it's obvious that you should help each other. Not game, but work on the online space as well. Maybe I didn't really succeed in that. Doesn't matter too much. My point is that then later Meetup.com started demanding payments, which is, well, then you have to tie it to your identity. There might be ways around that, but the real problem started, maybe this is when I checked again if I could use the Meetup.com, and if I paid twice at least, maybe 3 times, to try to reboot something on the ground. But by then I discovered that when users use meetup.com, when I search for meetups in a certain city in whatever country, without logging in, or even probably even worse if I log in, the results that I got started hiding results for me. So the algorithm of meetup.com already started influencing how people connect in the world in a major way. Another parallel was I was part of 3 people who formally organized an organization to do a national rebellion against free trade systems that are totally opposite of free trade systems. Now, this is around 10 years ago, so the regime was very different. That, for me, it included, I was the one who was spending a lot of time, because I've been this kind of micro-entrepreneur, so I have time compared to others. So I spent a lot of my time in that movement to try to fuse together different national movements on Facebook. And people were furious, for good reason, in all sorts of ways. And these movements were kind of separate. I'll just close that door. These movements were about different issues, but they had the common interest of not letting globalism take over the country. Well, I mean, not furthering that process. Obviously now I understand that it was almost complete already 10 years ago. So I was able to do that, and to a degree I was successful, but some of these groups splintered off, like that always happens in any kind of organization of crowds of people. But I was allowed to do it, and none of these people were banned from Facebook. This is 10 years ago, and they were allowed to discuss more or less anything. Now, of course, the opposite is true. So this is another example of, because back then you didn't have AI as such, but you had very advanced algorithms, and when their advanced algorithms work on masses of people and complex movements like these things, it kind of already acted as some type of AI. But we were allowed to do whatever we wanted. Now, of course, it's very different. And that makes me realize today that for me everything is coming together. I have wondered what kind of link is there between this technology and the other main deep interest through my life, which has been meditation and traditions around that, and a lot about the East and like Tibetan Buddhism and all of these things. This is what I know. I'm going into an adventure now, getting to know other traditions in a deeper way, I think. And it's just happening. And I'm letting it happen, because another thing I did in 2006, 7, 8 or something, I think I bought the first Apple iPhone 3G, and then I sold it to a designer friend of mine. I had stored some contacts on that phone. It's the first time I ever stored contacts online. And then I discovered, hey, I can't get rid of these contacts. I wiped the phone before selling it, of course, and I tried to purge it from my Google account, and I kind of gave up because it's not that many contacts, and frankly, I don't worry too much if the system has a handful of my friends. You probably know that already anyway. Some years ago, I'd lost the phone number to a friend who never would publish his phone number. I wanted to talk to him again for the first time after 15 years or so. Well, that contact was in the phone list, so I was able to call him. It's far too convenient. All of this technology is far too convenient. After that experience, when I sold the phone in maybe 2007, I never used contact list application, even locally. I just like contact lists online, on electronic media. Like, I'm not going to do it. LinkedIn was my contact list to a certain degree, because I pulled all of my energy into building networks and succeeded in some insane ways. This fuses now for me with some other deep interests. Like, I've got this deep interest in how people work and how cultures work and how complexity works on its own, and how our mind is totally capable of handling complexity in a natural way. And like, when I ventured into this, I don't like I don't even like the standard terms, because I think you can get further if you build your own version of the world. So whatever you call spirituality, or then you tend to have, okay, some people are more advanced than others, and okay, you need some kind of direct teaching to get somewhere. This has been the paradigm up until now, at least, and I think it's going to remain the paradigm, because when you go to groups where people experience things like reincarnation memory and non-dual consciousness experiences, there's a lot of confusion out there. But now people can actually, with social media, people gravitate towards these groups, and they discuss, and then it seems to me that there's less confusion now than before these things were available. So what's the link between this and AI? Well, spent around 20 years. I'm still in. If I was physically in my passport country, I would still be part of this once or twice a year meeting, like kind of like the outer inner circle. The inner circle is meeting once a week with someone who had a permanent experience, like an experience where the mind just completely opens up. It stays that way. In 94, 3, something like that. In the beginning, and it's a trend in this group meeting, still there, but now people have kind of settled in a way. But in the beginning, there was a lot of focus on how do we calm ourselves down, and like from she saw the need to disentangle us from, maybe you can call it some mind viruses that are around that, but mainly like this energetic push to get somewhere. And the other thing was the key thing here. We went through a lot of videos from all types of teachers, from all types of traditions, and the focus was to identify what is genuine, not what is right, but what is genuine. And I guess this impulse came from her because with that kind of open consciousness, you know how things work, and talking to us, and like all of this group is still agrees that like classical Nalanda Buddhism, which is the Tibetan thing, basically is as close as you get to a real model of the world. So technically I'm a Buddhist. Practical purposes, I personally haven't found anything that negates the basic setups of this particular system, but it doesn't matter. Why would you want to hone your sense of identifying what is genuine spirituality in terms of teachers who attract people either by their own extrovert action or by their introvert non-action, or whatever you call it? Well, you need to know, because you don't want to be led astray. The problem is that many of these people who end up in these positions lead themselves astray. Like the people around them believe that suddenly this person is elevated, and the person itself starts believing in it. There are some fascinating stories about people who are that way, and then there's some kind of learning crept in later. But normally the trajectory of that teacher and people around that person is negative. And if there is anything positive in the beginning, if it is not genuine, if it portrays itself, the movement or whatever, or as something more than it is, it's going to collapse at some point. It's going to end in some kind of bad place. So there are all these mechanisms in it, at least the traditions I know. It's not. There is a hierarchy, but it's not about hierarchy. The hierarchy is about keeping the real deep impulse that can change people sane and genuine. So it's like a guarding of the operational core of the system. So what is the relevance between honing your skills on who is genuine and what might have value in a deeper way, and AI? Well, I'm gonna deep fake myself later. I've got on my to-do list that I want to take a real video of myself like this, maybe with a mask or something, and I'm gonna take my real face and my real voice and whatever, and I'm gonna use that to deep fake myself. I wouldn't mess with the system. You always have to mess with the system. Because if you don't mess with the system, the system is gonna mess with you. So I might also get deepfaked. There is this same situation where what shouldn't happen, which inevitably would happen, of course, is because of some error, my fingerprint has been scanned at some border, images and stored in some local data bank. And of course, that was going to happen. It was not matched to my biometric ID in the passport, and so well. Maybe I'll finally do a DNA test because I need it for health reasons, but I never done it, and I wanted to do it in my cat name or whatever. But hey there. The world is messy. People are messy. Cultures are very intelligent mechanisms to deal with mess and challenges, and then spiritual systems are then maybe the main driver of cultures, because you have someone who, if you don't know why you should do anything, or if you don't have some genuine motivation, and if you don't really care about anything or anyone, I mean, nothing is gonna work long term. This is why I'm talking about the West, how it collapses now. So the only way to guard ourselves against AI is to get even better and better and better at recognizing what is genuine, what is a real person. This is why I'm letting myself be as messy as I can. This is why I've been messing up my own identity. This is why I've been preparing like mad before going online and doing these things, because I know that if I'm letting the algorithms and then the AI define me and control me, I would go offline permanently. I would go live in some kind of homestead, or I'd rather roam around like a real hobo or something. I'll probably have to do the roaming around anyway, but I'll do the roaming around while I'm trying to tame these beasts that are online. And localized AI is absolutely necessary, and I'm not talking about localized AI owned by a central party, which is the proposal from the West and the US and the Silicon Valley and all of this. Yeah, you can use some of that AI in a localized way, but you have to own the data, you have to own the processing, you have to own the server farms. I really hope that we can somehow set up a movement where donations in uncensorable money goes towards sponsoring local data centers. This is why I'll just do a free VPS in Afghanistan and Algeria, or like I need to test since I've been in ITs, like more in an amateurish role, but I did build my first website in '99 or something, and then I built companies on top of it. I've been this super user for many years. I can do coding if I need to. This is on Linux. These are details, these are tools. But when it comes to running localized AI, it's crucial, because local culture is built on thousands of years of adapting, and then the spiritual core of that is what leads it, what should lead it. It is what sorts out problems. It is what makes people have any kind of meaning, and this is more intact in many countries outside of the West, of course. So they have a chance, but they haven't got a chance unless this is being done, which is why I was so inspired by meeting this guy in Nepal who is doing localized AI, who is passing local texts to get the local culture into the language. And for now they are using this for chat support, I think, only. And another thing that I really don't like, maybe they also don't like it, but it needs to be done, and you would rather have a localized AI running locally, that's been trained locally, even if it is about something very mundane on a support chat. You still want that instead of someone coming from somewhere else that influences you. Lots of cat. Don't eat plastic. Oh, that's not plastic. That's a leaf. So I hope that there will be some movements, and I'll do whatever I can to kickstart it, where globally there is capitalization of totally open source, totally local AIs, because that is needed. I just saw this video with Varoufakis yesterday, and that made me think, made me actually realize that I'll just fuse everything I'll do together. I'll do different channels, I'll cross post, and I'm missing enough now. I'm knowledgeable enough. I've honed enough weapons in this war to actually take it on. All of the planning is done, and it's flexible planning, and all the planning has been done around algorithms that always try to sniff out your real identity, and payment railways and ways of incorporating that is completely outside of at least the Western systems. And then the content part, which has to be genuine all the way. Because this is also a deep trend. People who are not genuine online. I follow many YouTube creators and many channels that have like good productions, but I don't think I follow anyone who is like deeply false and manipulative. Maybe some that are on the freedom side that are manipulative in terms of totally monetizing all of their people and also preying on people. I follow some of those. I tend to just read the titles, like what is this person in this gang now thinking about this, because it's a process, and I spend 2 or 3 or 4 hours every day like just parsing news and these developments, and because my life and freedom depends on it ultimately down the line. So, and it's not a coincidence at all that I met that guy doing localized AI, and Nepal is a very complex country that's never been really colonized at all. They have thousands of years of managing different cultures within the nation. They think differently. They are able to parse things in very different ways. They've got a fighting chance. I'm not going to get involved in that because unless I get a business visa, maybe I'll get that. But I'll probably not do I can't do a work permit. I can't invest. I haven't. Maybe. We'll see. I can say this, and I can also say this in all sane countries on the planet. I can't say it in my own home country that, hey, I want localized AI, and I'm going to train it on these old books 100 years ago. That would probably be. I would probably produce an AI that is a thought criminal. So I'll do this maybe as well later. But just extracting myself from the West and like deprogramming all of the bullshit that came from the early 80s, and even though I've been aware of it for a long time, it's been a hell of a process. But I'm here now. And this guy that I met, he also had 2 other guys coming with him, and I mentioned this in another video. And the reason they came together is the 3 of them are following a local spiritual, maybe coach is a good word, because this is not a leader that is well known. This is not someone in a tradition, and they were a bit wary when they told him, yeah, but he's not following any systems. He's just a local guy who had a talent. Exactly my experience. So when I mentioned that, I also mentioned like, yeah, I know that deities are real because I've met the couple of them in my mind. The conversation completely changed. And it turns out that's why his two other friends were there, and they have a fighting chance. And these three people together as an example, and I think a lot of people in tech cultures like Nepal have a fighting chance in identifying what is real. I've seen other countries that have gotten further along the algorithm and now AI, that are, the middle class is much more lost in these things, and the assault that I've seen in some countries is, it's not good. There is a waking up globally, and I know that I don't see, I'm not seeing transparently through a foreign culture where there are like a million nuances on one tiny aspect that is one out of a million elements that is then mysteriously making up the living thing that the culture is. This also gives me a clear goal when I'm going to Egypt. I want to go back. It's a messy country, which is which on its own makes it more resilient towards big tech AI owning it all. When a country also is experiences levels of hardship that is connected to central banking and external forces, training everything to such a degree that every single person feels it. Well, when you're literally hungry and you literally need to work like mad just to survive, I think something in the mind changes. You grab any opportunity you can, but you're also very, very aware that the opportunity might blow up, or you always keep several options, and you know that you need to be more. You can't be cagey. You need to be open about things, and I think people that experience hardship and people who are under pressure have a much better potential as micro entrepreneurs or whatever, like the way I've been doing things. They got a much higher potential of rebuilding something. This is something I said when I went to Egypt, when some people were like, oh, it's hell now, and economically not local but connected to currency and all of these things, and people are aware, of course. And a couple of times, maybe it was some other country, but anyway, a couple of times I said things that like, well, you might be some of the first ones coming out on the other side, so you have a chance on rebuilding. But what is gonna be rebuilt? No place on the earth is able to completely fend off and avoid this, so the corporations will build inside of almost all countries. But the countries that will do well are the ones who do it locally. So this civilizational fight is between genuine people that always 95% of the planet, on all cultures and countries I've seen at least, because they just want to do the best for themselves and their families and the nation and whatever, and don't want to get left alone. Do it. So there's a lot of talk about these skipping steps. There was a lot of talk in the IT industry some years ago that Africa is going to do well because it can skip several steps. It's going directly from nothing or dial-up modems to smartphones. There's some truth to it. Like one of the networks I'm publishing photography on is Hive Network, and it's a really interesting glimpse into this is the type of photography that I really want to do. It's messy, it's analog, it's offline, but there's some element of truth to that, because movements like that exist and people connect, and they they build and they get micropayments for publishing content. And I've got this doctor that wants to help people online telemedically in Cuba, but he wants literally nothing, as close to nothing as you come. He just wants a symbolic donation. I was like, hey, I want to pay you a little bit because I need someone as a legal coach on the side. I'll get back to that, but that is micropayments in Sats, which is fractions of a Bitcoin. These kind of networks, these kind of tools, it's just extremely important that AI and big tech doesn't get hold of it and doesn't rein that in and doesn't get that too as a weapon in this assault on humanity. And Jonas Varoufakis is saying that China and the US is too AI, cloud sky, owning the world, owning the digital world, and then owning the real world. There's a fight between them. The EU is... You can't have artificial intelligence in the EU because there is no intelligence to start with. So maybe this is true. And that's unavoidable. And like, even if you're a mid-size or even a large company, you probably can't do anything about it, but you can do things on the ground locally. I can do things on the ground locally. I also know that if I do this, it maximizes. I've been analyzing this for years, and with a stack of notebooks, the same way that I planned my tiny business ventures, but I didn't do it with a loan. But I've had these workshops with myself for it obviously kickstarted everything like that, and I've had this process going for 10 years or more. But I really boosted it in 2020, and I went very deep, and this is where I'm arriving at. And I've been trying it out last year on the ground, going places and saying these things, and trying to put different big stacks of analysis and this experience together, and this is where I'm arriving. I'd totally be happy to be a rebel nomad going around and trying to help with if you want help, it has to be any kind of help that comes from someone like me out in the world, or anyone who comes from the world into my country. The thing is that they never want to help. They never state that they want to help, so they are saner in some ways. But I'm not talking about any kind of like imperial mindset. I'm the best. I'm gonna help someone who are not capable. Inspiring is the way. So maybe I need to do my own local battle. This cultural battle is ultimately reserved to my own culture, and maybe the system and culture that I know well, and I have these initiations, and I'm connected to the Tibetan system. Maybe I can very carefully ask the right questions in that setting. Ultimately, the only thing I can do in other cultures is ask questions. I got millions of questions. I really want to know how the mind works. I have some few data points after 30 years that I'm pretty sure of, that I would debate and see if anyone can kind of destroy those arguments. But other than that, most of it is questions. And this quest, that it should be a quest for people, I think, to identify what is genuine, what is their real culture, to go back. This is all what happening. Yes, that's a huge process, but with an eye towards continuously keeping in mind how that process adds to the weight on the side of humanity against AI. This has to be done in every aspect. It has to be done every minute anyone is online. I know many people in many movements already live this way. This is why I'm really interested in the Monero community. This is why I'm testing out things on places like XMR Bazaar. This is certainly why I've been building a wild account on Nostr. I had no idea where that account is gonna go. I was like doing this ANCAP thing in the beginning, and I've trying to launch this for a handful of times, a dozen of times. I've started getting something off the ground. After early 23, when I really realized that I can't even go back to rebuild because it's all gone. It's a fascinating thing. There's going to be videos about that. And it's not that everyone has to be into spirituality, or everyone needs to get it right. What is genuine, who is genuine, all of the time. It's a shit, my back. It's a willingness it's a willingness to keep that, like identify that inner radar that tells you what is genuine and true, and then just use it continuously. And going back to when people are literally hungry and literally struggling, you get a very good radar against bullshit and manipulation. Likewise, I've been hanging around in these spiritual systems to a large degree because I don't want to get mixed up with it in a way where I lose the process of figuring out the world myself. This is a long debate in these traditions as well, and there is a lot of respect for the need to. This is always stressed. The main decisions are yours, and you are the one who need to analyze if the people you listen to and follow are genuine or not, and it's a process. Will AI be able to catch up with this? I don't think so. You can fake it, you can fake it, you can fake it. I have another story. This is towards the end of the Cold War. It was after I left the army. I think maybe it was 89, the summer of 89, 1991, maybe it was after the fall of the Berlin Wall. But anyway, I can't remember who told me, but someone that I was in the army together with, or the same year, told me that he had heard from high officers that I think it was a colonel, one of the winter exercises. He had heard from a reputable source that right after the Soviet Union opened up, they had people. This is how it was. They had high-level officers from the Soviet Union joining in observing one of the exercises. I think this is the thing. These people were on colonel level. Their language, their local language, was perfect. They could have stayed in the country as a local without having anyone dictate them in terms of language. But the scary part was when the officers on the western side started talking to these people and tried to test them around things like children channel content that you would have grown up with in that country. They also didn't skip a beat. Their full-time learning had been that culture, that language, that history. It would have been very hard to detect these agents. Very, very hard. This is the same thing. You'll know that AI is owning most of the internet. You'll know that it's out there, and you'll wonder, is this AI? Is this a genuine person? I already follow a channel that is about Bitcoin, where I have serious doubt if it is a real person or not. I know that this can be created It's a German, so the language is top. And he's got a personality that is... But when I viewed some of that content again, I realized, well, he's actually genuine. He also put out a ton of videos in the beginning. So someone hardworking that is very analytical and very structured can do that. But so can an AI. So you'll be living in this foggy twilight zone. Ordinary people will be living the reality that high-level officials and operatives lived in during the Cold War. You won't know who is genuine. You won't know who you can trust. So you'll need to go back in history. You'll need to hone your skills on who is a real friend or not. This is the business world, and organizing movement and all of these things is very relevant, because eventually you'll be backstabbed by someone who doesn't want to backstab you, or eventually you'll be backstabbed by someone who's a friend, or eventually someone will backstab you or fight you, and then you turn out to be your best friend after. This is probably the case in economies that are under international pressure. Just get better at all of this. In the AI world, in the part of the world that is completely giving in, this is also something I've spent a lot of time on personally, to go back in time and root out all kind of manipulation, all kind of, especially things around learned helplessness. I've been way more independent-minded than... I've been stubborn around being independent and doing things on my own, that honestly it's one of the reasons that I left. But I still need to do it. I still discover, well, there's this general tendency towards diminishing your own capability. This is programmed into people in the culture. And there are all of these mechanisms, that all of these cutting blades, if you grow to be a tall puppy, you'll get cut off. And these are not cultural, real, organic things. It's globalist programming of a whole population, an entire civilization, and now history is being manipulated. Now AI is going to manipulate history, but it's also going to find uncomfortable facts that can't be denied in AI. Is also going to enter the scene. So those who build AIs around topics and local cultures, if you build an AI around a topic, it will include information that is generated in cultures. So you'll never get away from this. Like, how could the medical world assault everyone on the planet like it did? Well, you got internal culture. So the generalists, like the people who, like the culture buffs, the weird people, the woo people, finally, suddenly, those who are capable of dealing with these things. And in most cases, anyone taking a lead in this will be viewed as a rebel against technology. Different cultures will appreciate that or completely ban people. Another reason to get out. Another reason that I'm finally very happy that I got out, and I've got 6 or 7 years where I've stayed outside of the West more than 100 days a year, and that's real capital. That's real status that I can turn to a real investment and a real chance at fighting this shit. Because obviously, if you've been fighting globalism for 30 years, almost completely alone most of the time, and then 2020 happens and AI is coming and it's going to manipulate everything. Of course, I'm not going to back down. Just double down down on freedom, just double down on being human and messy, and double down on building in defiance. And I think building in defiance based on local culture and localized local needs will be respected by governments and the regulatory agencies and all of the kind of bureaucrats you'll meet in many countries. If I was young now, I would get into the AI war. You don't need to know the tech, because like the coding is happening on its own now. There's a lot to be said about obscure stacks and all these things. But if you're young now, pick a country you think you agree with. Pick a culture that you think you'd be happy exploring and just sinking into. Go there and announce that you are here for that fight. Magic things will happen. Magic dangerous things will happen if you stay. Magic dangerous destructive things will happen to you. I'll stop on that because I know this is true for Europe. This is why everyone needs good luck. If you are in Europe, get out. I'd be happy to help in that in any way. Get out. And regardless if you get out or if you stay, you really need luck. You need to create your own luck. So, good luck.